What is up, everyone? Barricade here, bringing you guys quick Gears of War lore episode. This is actually going to be talking about the Rise of Raam comics, and this is actually going to be a 5-part video series talking about each issue in this comic. It's going to be pretty damn awesome. I read the first issue just right now, and honestly, it's pretty damn awesome, and I just really couldn't wait to make a video talking about it. So the next 5 Gears of War lore episodes will be simply about this comic alone on each specific issue. So when it comes to Gears of War Rise of Raam issue 1, there is one thing that was very interesting when it came to this comic, and that is simply the fact that Raam, Scourge, and all the Locusts actually have dialogue. I know that sounds really weird, but throughout all the games, I've always had this impression that the Locusts spoke in very few words, that they only did things like hisses and things like that, just kind of screams or hisses that would be used as form of communications, but never actually really would have full-on sentences and things like that. I mean, when we see characters like Raam simply saying simple sentences like "serve the queen" or Scourge is simply screaming his head off, we never really had the idea or impression that the Locusts actually had dialogue and spoke with each other in a more of an intelligent manner. At least I didn't. But the thing that's really interesting is right off the bat we have Raam and Scourge having full dialogue with one another and actually having great conversations, even parts that were actually quite funny. It's kind of weird to see the Locusts have somewhat of personality and gives them more of a realistic feeling to them than just being mindless monsters. The one thing that was actually pretty interesting as well when it came to these characters, especially Raam and Scourge, is the fact that they actually have a little bit of a bromance there going on. It almost feels like they actually talk and communicate, make jokes, and actually have distinct personalities that set them apart. Raam being more of the assertive, take the lead type of person, with Scourge being more of the reclined and simple and almost even funny character making jokes at points. So it's kind of funny how we get this type of impression and feeling for the characters, and it gives them less of a mysterious feeling to them. So I feel it's a little bit of a bittersweet feeling when it comes to this comic, because I've always imagined Raam and Scourge to be more of these badass, relentless, evil-ass monsters that you would never see them making jokes. There's even at one point right here in the comic where he's referring to a soldier that was completely murdered by a Drudge's tentacle, and Scourge actually makes a sexual joke about it. So it's kind of funny that they actually have Scourge even making jokes. It almost gives me like the impression of like a funny, stupid character like Deadpool almost. And then Raam is more of the serious, more intuitive character that wants to get something done, has a purpose, and is very straightforward. The one thing I really wanted to talk about when it came to this comic, just in this very first issue that was really interesting, is Raam was the one that decided that they needed to attack the surface. That's the thing that's really interesting, because throughout the whole series, I always assumed that it was the Queen that ultimately thought, you know what, screw this, we can't fight the Lambent, we need to go to the surface. But it was actually Raam that was the one that implanted this idea into the Locust Army, into the Queen's mind, and just brought up that idea to begin with. And that's really interesting for his character alone, because of the fact that he is the reason why E-Day happens, in a sense. So that's the one really cool thing that brings a lot to his character, because it was a decision that, yes, was ultimately decided by the Queen, but only even became an idea was because of Raam. And I think that's really crazy is throughout the beginning of the comic, and just the core focus of the very first issue, is that Raam is on the front line, of course, because he's one of the main commanders at the time of the Locust Army, and he's helping fight the Lambent in this huge war that seems hopeless. And he's the only one that has the guts to say, this isn't working, we need to just go out and fight the humans and take the surface. Like, he's the only one that has this idea. Everyone just wants to stay in the hollow. Even Scourge thinks he's crazy, and Scourge at one point even tells him that why would you do this? We're already fighting one enemy, now we're gonna have to fight another one if we go to the surface, kind of trying to convince Raam not to talk to the Queen about it. And here's the one thing that's really damn interesting overall, and it makes me wonder what happens to him. And I'm guessing it's only in this comic that we'll see what happened to him, but there's actually a new character exclusive to this comic, and he is actually the original leader of the army. He's the original general, the main commander, the guy that you wouldn't fuck with. And his name is Uzil. If I pronounce that correctly, it's spelled U-Z-I-L. And just look at this. I'm going to post some screenshots right here of the comic. And holy fuck, he beats the crap out of Raam. He makes Raam look like a punk. And this is only a few years or so before Emergence Day. From what I can tell, it says that it's years before Emergence Day. There is one cutoff in the comic that shows the Cog fighting the UIR, so it is sometime before Emergence Day. And since it is the UIR, I'm guessing around the time that around Asphalt Fields, I'm thinking that's my impression, or maybe a little before that, maybe a few years before that, maybe only like 3 or 4 years before Emergence Day. I could be wrong. The comic didn't really specify what the time frame of this comic takes place in, but seeing as it is during the Pendulum Wars and they're fighting Lambit, it's more than often like that they're pretty close to Emergence Day, and by the end of this comic, he will convince them to attack the surface. But anyways, this general at the time, Yuzul, he is freaking gigantic, and Raam tries to fight him, trying to talk to the queen, because the whole point of it is Raam is trying to talk to the queen to relay his idea, saying, we need to attack the surface, and Yuzul kind of has the idea of, no, you're going to go back to the front, you're going to fight the Lambit, and if you die, you die, and you're going to die honorably. We're not going to go to the surface. And he's completely against the idea of attacking the humans and going to the surface. And Raam tries to fight him to defy him, and Yuzul makes Raam look like a child. Like, he literally picks him up, slams him on the table, beats the crap out of him, and even picks up Raam by one hand. Raam, the friggin' badass locust that we see that seems so unstoppable, is getting manhandled by this other locust named Yuzul. And that's the thing that makes me wonder, though, is this really only a few years before Emergence Day? Because if that's the case, then that means Yuzul is even bigger and stronger than Raam, seeing as he beat the ever-loving crap out of him. The only other thing I could think of is maybe this is well before Emergence Day. There's a chance it could be like maybe 5-10 years before Emergence Day, and at this time Raam may have not been his fully grown height yet. It's kind of hard to say. They kind of almost look like younger versions of themselves, Raam and Scourge do. So it could be a chance that Raam is younger and he is weaker and he's not that strength yet, but I don't really see him having a huge growth spurt becoming much bigger. It almost looks like he's already the way he is before Gears of War 1, and just Yuzul is just that much bigger. And pretty much towards the end of the comic, throughout the whole plot of the comic, it's just Raam talking about how he wants to attack the service. He tries to relay his idea to the queen. Yuzul beats his ass, and then at the end of it, they have to go back to the front lines and fight the Lambit some more. And Raam, towards the end of the comment, says, Scourge is like, why do you want to, why are you trying to do this? Because Raam kind of almost says that he wants to go back to try to talk to the queen again. And Scourge, kind of tells him, well, Yuzul didn't let you talk to her, you're just going to get your ass kicked again. And Raam's like, no, you don't understand. Even though I didn't talk to her, my idea still got across. And that is pretty true, because after Raam is escorted out, Scourge actually has to drag him out because he's so badly beaten. The Yuzul talks to the queen, and the queen kind of like, oh, are we gonna attack the surface? Is the war lost? Kind of like having getting the idea in her brain. So Raam's idea was smart. Yeah, he got his ass kicked, but he did get the idea across and kind of showing how desperate their fight really is. So that's the thing that's pretty damn awesome. And then the comic just simply ends with them fighting more Lambit enemies, and it's just gonna go on from there. But this is just the very first issue of Gears of War Raam. Rise of Raam, and there's going to be 4 more issues, 4 more videos of me talking about it. But overall, guys, tell me what you guys think. Are you guys interested with this comic? Do you feel weird that the Locusts have dialogue? I first thought it was kind of weird, and it's hard to imagine them talking and making jokes. You know what I mean? I never imagined Raam or Scourge talking like that. And then also, when you saw, I posted a screenshot earlier of Yuzul, do you really believe maybe Raam is younger at this time and eventually he becomes like the height of Yuzul and the strength of Yuzul and beats his ass? Or maybe do you believe that, maybe this particular locust was just that much bigger and stronger than Raam, and then something happens to him later on? That's what I'm thinking. I'm kind of hoping for that, because the idea of a locust that much bigger and stronger than Raam is pretty damn interesting, and I really do hope that's the case. But always, guys, if you guys like this video, please definitely hit that like button and subscribe, and tell me what you guys think about Rise of Raam issue number 1. I'm going to be making more videos as the comics come out. Unfortunately, they only come out like a month apart, so it's going to be some time between the next video. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and take it easy. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see my most recent Gears of War video, hit that link on the left. If you want to see any of my other content, hit that link on the right. Thanks for watching, guys.